To get started on the second part of my assignment in Illustrator, I'm just going to make a duplicate artboard. I'm going to continue. I need to make heart wallpaper in Illustrator. And again, Illustrator. I'm working in Illustrator today. I need to make a duplicate artboard. There's a variety of ways that I can do that. If I want to use some of the same elements that are on my initial artboard, what I can do is I can just select the Artboard tool, hold down Option key, and then just kind of click and drag this over to the side. Again, I'm using Smart Guides to help me align stuff. I'm going to put a little bit away from the other board, and yay, then I've got another board really fast. Or if I wanted to make a new blank board, I could go to the Artboard panel and click on the little thing down the bottom that says New Artboard, and that would also create a new artboard. But Option click and drag, and the Artboard tool works really well. I just have to make sure I get myself out of the Artboard tool so that I don't accidentally move things around. I'm going to hold down my space bar and click and drag to move things around. And to get started on my wallpaper, I can stick those heart shapes kind of off on the paste board because I'm going to work with them in a second. There we go. But what I want to do for now is I want to make my background kind of interesting. I'm going to make it look like wallpaper because it's going to become part of my Valentine's Day special with graphics. So I just want to fill the background with a color, preferably not the same color as the hearts that I'm going to make. So I'm just going to make a rectangle shape in the background and change out the heart color. I've got a CMYK set up here. If I know I'm going to be doing something for web, I might choose Web Safe RGB, and I might also go to Window menu, go to Swatch Libraries, and choose, since I don't see that I have it open anywhere, the Web Swatches panel, which I can drag over here where I have all of my swatches. So I'm just going to sample a color that is different, that will make everything else I put on this stand out. This. Okay, wins. I can also, if I want to, I can throw some gradients in there. If I don't see my gradient panel open, it's over here. I can always click Window menu and hit Gradient. If it's checked, it's open somewhere. So Gradient panel is down here. I'm just going to drag the color chip down, and I can select another color to put in here. I can either use the not very exciting color chips that are down in here. That's lovely. Or I can actually also drag down from, I don't know if I want something a little bit more that wasn't what I wanted. Okay, well, I will drag that color chip down into my gradient panel, and then the gradient will pop back in there. If I want to change the direction of the gradient, if I'm not happy with it, I can always use the gradient tool and sort of change the direction of the gradient until it looks the way I want it to. So I've got two different hearts here that I'm going to work with, two different heart shapes. There are things I can do to these hearts. I mean, other than just, hey, let's put that on its own layer. Send that backward. I'm going to make a duplicate layer. I'm going to cut that off of there. Call this layer. I always name my layers just because it's easier. If I do, it's easier to figure things out. It's also helpful if I spell it correctly. Okay, so background layer, that's where the gradient is. I'm just going to lock that for now and make a new layer and call it hearts, and start working in that layer by pasting in that heart I just ripped off of my background layer. If I think I'm going to reuse the same thing over and over again, I will Option click and drag and just sort of stick one over on this side to save it. So there are a variety of things I can do to this heart here. I mean, it's not really, I'm not really there yet. I'm not really feeling it. This isn't terribly funky yet. I got to do things and mess with it to make it look more like wallpaper. But to get started, if I want to work with the hearts, I can always option click and drag to duplicate and make, I'm just going to make it a different color so you can see what I'm doing. And I can always kind of use my align tools. This may work, this may not. Oh no, okay, it works. So I've got one heart shape over another heart shape. Both of them are selected, and here is what I am going to do. I am going to use, in my Pathfinder panel, there are different things I can do to this. What I'm going to do to now is called minus front. So that heart, the duplicate heart that I made, that I reduced in size and stuck into the middle of the red heart in the background, I'm just going to choose minus front. And what it's going to do is it's going to knock that shape out of here, meaning if I were to take something else, and I can't select that because it's on layer 1. If I made a duplicate of this shape and made it a different color and sent that backwards, now you understand what that, putting that shape over there and using Pathfinder minus front does. We'll get rid of that for now because we don't need it. I think I'm going to apply some 3D effects to this. Extrude and bevel might be fun. I'm going to check preview while I'm doing it. I can make different types of bevels, like a round bevel. I can change the height of it. I can also change the extrude depth. I can kind of wiggle it around in space and make something that looks the way I want it to look. I can also decide if I want the bevel farther outside or inside, whatever I think looks better. Once I've got that, I'm going to click OK, and I can option click and drag and duplicate these very quickly so that I have a bunch of them. I can change the size slightly and reduce and perhaps sample different colors if I choose to, and I can keep making stuff as I like. I've got this other heart here in the background. I'm just going to copy that, lock that layer, and bring it into my hearts layer by pasting. So not terribly exciting. I'm not sure I want to put it on that layer. Let's cut it off. Okay, and make another layer. And lock our hearts layer and call this dinky hearts, because we're going to make smaller ones. So what I can do to make that dinky heart, that's not supposed to happen. I can actually use that heart, make it really small, and use it to make like a swatch, to make a wallpaper pattern. I just want to have lots of hearts everywhere, but I don't want the hearts bumping up against one another. I want to make like an invisible kind of border around it. So I'm just selecting my rectangle tool. I'm going to hold down Shift when I draw a square. I'm going to make sure that my square has no fill. That's right, it's invisible. And I'm going to click and drag to select both of these and group them. Then I'm going to drag this thing, make sure nothing else is selected in here because I don't want to slam this onto anything else. I'm just going to drag it, that invisible rectangle around it, square, whatever you want to call it. That just gives some space between the heart and the edge of where my wallpaper pattern is going to be. So I'm going to drag that over to my swatches panel, not my web swatches, my regular swatches, and I'm going to drag it until I see a little green plus sign pop up, and cool, that's been added into there. I see a white background there, so hopefully it doesn't put a white background on it. Hopefully we put a clear background on it. I'm going to click outside of that to deselect stuff and cross my fingers and hope that this worked. I'm going to drag out another rectangle shape and fill it with cool, those hearts. So I've got lots and lots of little hearts. I'm going to knock down the opacity so they're not obnoxious. And my wallpaper is really coming along. So there are some other things I could do to this. I could use brushes to create a type of organic sort of spray pattern in the background. I could create different little shapes. Perhaps I will put some cloud shapes into here. There are so many different things you could do using the Pathfinder panel, the shape tools, the effects menu, and ultimately swatches and opacity. So feel free to play with everything.